What you listening to, son?
I don't think you like it.
Well, why not? I like this new generation of music. Mother of God, it's all toilet sound.
Today we are ranking death metal albums from Q1 of 2025, starting with Fleshbore with Painted Paradise. Now, I liked this Indiana tech death band's debut, Ember's Gathering, but this follow-up blows that completely out of the water in every possible way. Fans of bands like Archspire, Exocrine, and Surreption in particular should absolutely love this. The guitars are just so much fun with their chaos. The rapid-fire vocals never fail to put a smirk on my face. This is going to perfection. Next up is Disrupted with Coffin Breath. Just some very classic sounding Swedish death metal with that buzzsaw HM2 distortion. The band founded in 2012, with this being their third record following up 2020's Pure Death. Not much else to say about it really. It's far from the most original thing on this list, but it'll probably get your head banging in the same vein as things like Entombed, Dismember, and Bloodbath. I'm putting it at okay too. Then we have Mutagenic Host with The Diseased Machine. This debut from the London Quintet very much in line with albums like Morbid Angel's Domination. It's a very simple yet sickening slice of slime-ridden groove backed by some strong production to emphasize its dark, cavernous qualities. Another fresh face to add to the growing wave of modern bands in the classic style, recommended to fans of Frozen Soul and Necrot in particular. It's going to amazing. We have Sin of God with Bloodbound. Album 3 for this Hungarian technical death metal band, coming almost 10 years in the wake of Enigmata. With comparisons to the likes of Deicide and Nile, it's again kind of classic death metal to the bone with deep imposing vocals and plenty of double bass pedal. A little repetitive with the songwriting at times, but it's only 34 minutes, so you know, you can't really go too wrong with it. I'm putting it at good tier. Then we have Estuarine with Corporeal Furnace. My deep dive into 90s and 2000s death metal really helped to make further sense of the madness of this band with my exposure to the likes of Lycathia, Phlegm, Mithras, and Tooh, or T-O-O-H. Avant-garde, technical, progressive, blackened, psychedelic death grind still sums it up pretty well as I put it the first time I listened to them. I also agree with Hydra calling this album faster, heavier, and less conventional than any of their previous material. Very boundary pushing, they described it as well. I'm putting it at killer. Then we have Serenity and Murder with Timeless Reverie. Album 5 for this incredibly underrated melodic death metal band out of Japan, kind of starting the year strong for that genre. Their particular mix of uplifting riffs with synths and symphonic elements should particularly appeal to fans of Mors Principium Est, Dark Tranquillity, and Calma. Not my favorite from them. I think the last two were a little bit stronger, but still a banger of a melodeath album, going to fantastic. Then we have Pyre with Where Obscurity Sways. Some solid, if a little unremarkable, mid-paced death metal out of Russia. More comparisons to the Swedish camp like Dismember and Grave, but with vocals that at times also remind me of Behemoth. I will say that the overall slower approach does make the explosions of speed hit all the harder on tracks like Domains of the Nameless Rites from the Stygian Depths. Some nice slimy grooves and earworm leads too. I'm putting this at great tier. More melodeath. We have The Halo Effect with March of the Unheard. The absence is everywhere. Now, I've been a little lukewarm on the last two Dark Tranquillity records, and I've been a little rough on In Flames over the years. That last record was pretty good, though. But where those have just been solid, this union of members of both bands has just yet to let me down so far. You really do get the best of both worlds on this sophomore effort. Those unmistakable classic In Flames riffs, the lush atmosphere of the Dark Tranquillity synths, and of course Michael's always powerful vocals. It's going to perfection. We have Fractured Insanity with Age of Manipulation. Over 20 years for this Belgian death metal band, now with 5 albums under their belt, and a sound I would compare kind of like Behemoth meets Belphegor. It's got that deliciously blackened spirit with a clear penchant for blasphemy, and some of these vocals are just plain gnarly. There is some room for editing down here and there, but largely this was a really solid listen as well. It's going to good tier. Then we have Faithxtractor with Loathing and the Noose. The 5th album from this Ohio death metal duo formed in 2005, and such a great traversing of pacing here from chaotic technical speed to primitive man-esque extreme doom, sometimes all in one track, super heavy, very engaging. It surprised me a number of times. I'm putting it at amazing. Then we have Pissgrave with Malignant Worthlessness. The purveyors of Pustulant Perversion back with their 3rd album of pure filth and used in the meme I've made in the intro there. But I have to say, I think that the initial shock has worn off for me, as for all of its attempted intensity, I was just bored listening to this album. I tried multiple times to see if it was a grower. It was not for me. I know a lot of people in the comments would disagree and did disagree with me when I mentioned this for that month's video. But yeah, it's still gross, so points for being absolutely vile, but I just don't find it to be particularly engaging. But as always, if you enjoyed it more power to you. It's just my opinion. But yeah, it's just going to good for me.
Pissgrave.
Then we have Synaptic with Enter the Void. Now, despite originally forming in the 2000s, this is the German band's first full-length album, and I am so glad that someone recommended it to me in the comments. Technical and progressive death metal to the nth degree with guitars and also bass that will give you motion sickness. If I'm nitpicking, I feel like the few moments with clean vocals lack the same quality as everything else, but outside of that, this album is 34 minutes of just pure headbanging. It is going to fantastic. Then we have Caustic Phlegm with Purulent Apocalypse. The debut from this solo UK death metal project with another gnarly sound I would compare also to Pissgrave, but with the raw sentiment of plenty of the early 90s death metal founders with the buzzsaw guitars and cavernous reverb. Songs like the Teratophilist also have this very unique, unsettling tone that was ultimately what kind of won me over to listening to this in full. It could use a little bit more variety in its runtime. The more I listened to it, the more it started to kind of like, I don't know, but get a little bit dull, but there's a foundation of something really solid here, and I enjoyed it, so it's going to great tier. Then we have Burn Down Eden with Dismal Epiphany. Album 4 from this German melodic death metal band formed in 2012. These guys definitely cooking up all the best elements of my favorite genre while also bringing a fun sense of humor to their music videos. I do think that the vocals could have a little bit more presence and the songs could have a little more unique personality, but those, thoughts aside, Gothenburg Melodeath fans should love this as much as I did, probably. So, going to amazing. Then we have Sepulchral Curse. That is a hard band name to say. With Crimson Moon Evocations. There are things I really enjoy from this Finnish black and death metal band's 3rd album, mainly the massive sounding atmosphere and malevolent earworm guitar melodies, but unfortunately the general songwriting and one-note vocal performance hold the other elements back, in my opinion. Admittedly, some of that has to do with the doomier parts. I feel like I was consistently on the verge of falling in love with the song, only for them to just fall short every single time, but strong enough that I put it at killer. Then there's Open Casket with Trials of Failure. Super heavy debut full length from this little rock death metal band with plenty of hardcore influence in its DNA as well. Lots of slammy riffs and punishing vocals to really inspire as much violence in the pit as possible. Frankly, every note feels fine-tuned specifically for a live audience to cause as much damage as possible with tracks like Putrid Existence. Put this one at great tier. Then there's Vacuous with In His Blood. Album 2 for this UK death metal crew, leaning into a similar cavernous and reverb-heavy realm as the likes of Incantation and Slime Lord. They put less emphasis on the doom elements overall, I would say, but they do take center stage at times on tracks like Public Humiliation. Solid atmosphere, putting a few twists on a foundation of what is otherwise pretty familiar OSDM territory. I like the head-bobbing turn of Contraband in particular. This one is going to amazing. Then there's Phrenelith with Ashen Womb. Now, I saw a bunch of people hyped for the third album from this Copenhagen death metal band. I wasn't initially impressed, but as I said in that month's video, I gave it another shot based on all the positive comments, and I still just was kind of like, it's fine. Like, it's solid enough in terms of atmosphere and old school energy, but I feel like the Irish band Malthusian just gives me more of what I want in this particular flavor. Solid enough that I put it at great tier, but I wasn't nearly as keen on this as some other people were, but maybe you will be. Then we have Avulsed with Phoenix Cryptobiosis. We covered 2 of this Spanish band's albums in the 90s death metal tier list, and I'd say that despite being around that long, for better or worse, they have changed very little. This is another just very classic slice of death metal, and if that's what you're looking for, there's plenty to enjoy with the energetic beast. Not something I see myself spending a lot of time with moving forward, but a good time nonetheless. So that felt like a good tier addition. Then we have Scalpture with Landkrieg. Now, this album goes so hard right from the first scream and deluge of riffage on the appropriately titled Into Catastrophe, and it just never lets up from there. Highly recommended to fans of Gatecreeper with this lesser discussed German death metal band formed in 2009. I'd say they possess a lot of the same kind of cavernous quality and generally punishing impact. Frankly, this is what I really wanted from that last Gatecreeper album that I have repeatedly said was kind of fine, not great in my opinion, even though everybody else loved it. But I'm putting this one at perfection. Note also that since this is Q1, just like we did last year, we'll do one every quarter, and the last one, even as we move along too, the placements of these could move, because we're talking over a period of 12 months here. My opinions change all the time. So these may fluctuate, things may go down, things may go up. We'll have to see what happens. But next up we have Sadist with Something to Pierce. Big fan of these Italians since discovering them with Hyena in 2015. I actually recently found a used copy of that at a record store that I finally added to my shelf. I kept seeing it there, like over the past maybe even like 10 years, and I finally was like, you keep finding it, buy it. Anyways, their progressive and at times experimental fusion of death metal and thrash metal is wholly their own, and they continue to keep me on the edge of my seat with this 10th record. Love what they bring in those tribal sounding drums and always varied approach to the synth, not to mention some utterly jaw-dropping solos. Another case where it's not my favorite in their discography. I don't think it's as good as Hyena or like their second album in particular, but I am going to put it at amazing. It is very strong. Then we have Desiderium with Keys to the Palace. Album 5 for this solo progressive death metal project out of California. Always crazy when just one guy, mostly, can be responsible for such epic atmosphere, and especially when considering the Dream Theater level runtimes and in some cases compositions here. Highly recommended to fans of Wilder Run, I would say. It is going to killer. Then we have Retromorphosis with Salmus Mortis. So this is made up largely of current and former members of Spawn of Possession, Obscura, and Necrophagist, as well as Decrepit Birth. And it's just as dizzying and technical as you would imagine from that crew. This one, if I can nitpick a little bit, again, I think the vocals are, again, a little one note. They, to me, just don't mesh as well with the complexity of the musicianship. And so I think if you stepped that element up, this could be like a 10 out of 10 album. But I found that kept kind of like pulling my enjoyment down just a little bit. But I kept re-listening to this, and it is a very strong record. So it went to fantastic. Then we have Wombbath with Beyond the Abyss. Album 6 for this Swedish band that has been releasing records since 1993. I've always enjoyed them, but rarely loved them. They're one of those bands that gets lost in the shuffle a lot, but whenever I see their name, it's kind of like, oh yeah, I should check that out, because I always enjoy it. But yeah, say this album continues that trend. Solid, but rarely noteworthy. I barely remember any of it now, making this recording. So for that reason, it landed at okay, but even the okay tier stuff so far this year has been strong enough that I'd recommend it. Then we have Throne with That Who Sat Upon Him Was Death. Solid second album from this Michigan death metal crew, very reminiscent of Suffocation. They caught my attention with the battering opener Disentombed, and there are plenty of other great moments here, but again, I'd say the problem is I don't think that they always do what they do well enough to overcome the kind of this has all been done before threshold for me personally. So, strong, not the best. It's going to great tier. Controversial, we have Obscuro with Asonication. Now, putting the controversy aside for the people directly involved to handle, I actually really enjoyed this album just as much as past releases from this German progressive death metal band. There are definitely issues with the production, like that struck me immediately with how kind of like tinny it sounds, but the more I listened to it, the more I really loved these songs, which is, again, kind of unfortunate given the controversy, but if I'm removing that, I can't deny that I just really enjoyed this album. I know there are plenty of people in the comments who really did not and thought it was terrible. That's perfectly fine. But me personally, I liked it a lot, start to finish. I listened to it a ton and had a hard time putting it down to listen to other stuff. So it landed at fantastic for me. I know other people would have it way down at the bottom. And then on the flip side, we have Titan Blood with From the Visceral Abyss. The fourth and also highly anticipated album from this Spanish black and death metal crew. Now bear in mind, again, I love dark, angry, chaotic music like Adversarial, Abyssal, Malthusian, and Portal. Sometimes I get accused of like only liking super pristine, technical, like modern technical death metal stuff, but that's just not the case. So that's not my issue with this. My issue is that there is just like, it feels like there's no structure to this thing whatsoever. It's just like chaos for chaos sake. And I'm not a big fan of that. I like a little controlled chaos. I like there to be like a direction that the album is going. And there are moments here that really got my motor running, but by and large, I was kind of sitting there just sort of, again, kind of bored because it was just like wankery. So your mileage may vary. I still give them credit for just how strong they are as musicians and performers. And I think it's a more impressive album than some of the others here, so I still gave them a spot at Killer. And then we're going to wrap things up with this one, with Pathogenic with Crowned in Corpses. Big surprise there. The third album from this Massachusetts progressive death metal band formed back in 2004, and again, first recommended to me by Justin Bonnets of Talo, which I still just find so amusing, but I really appreciate that he did that because it primed me to be like, oh, I recognize that name. I should definitely really spend some time with this. And it is a wonderful mix of technical death metal and djenty grooves that I think should be pleasing to a broad spectrum of the metal community. Really strong album. Obviously, I enjoyed it enough to get a shirt and also the CD. I am putting this one at perfection, and I think it's actually my favorite death metal of the year so far. Y'all check out this playlist for more death metal rankings, or this playlist for my rankings of death metal from the 90s and a little bit of the 80s by year. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.